last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, I came over to the city hall and some second graders from Heritage Elementary came to do a field trip. It was a lot of fun, and they had a mock city council meeting and learned about the role of local government and what that does for them. And that was really fun. Participate in that. And it just reminded me how much I love time of year, not just because my kids are at school for 6 hours a day, that's part of it, but I really love watching kids go back to school and watching them learn and grow. My kids at their school, every year they have one overarching question that they discuss throughout the year. Last year they discussed the question, does power corrupt? And so that was a conversation that they had over and over and in different debates about it. And this year the question that they're discussing is, what is the hero's journey? And so they talk about what a hero is and what a hero's journey looks like and all sorts of things like that. Which I think is just so cool to get these kids thinking about big questions and just like what their role is in the world, what their place is in the world. And it also reminded me how when I was a teenager, I participated in my own youth city council in Centerville City. And kind of got me thinking about what is government and what's my role in it. And that was a lot of fun as a youth. I actually forgot about that until I got elected to city council that I had done that. But anyway, I just love this time of year, and I'm just happy that kids are back in school and thinking about these questions and pondering about how they can make an impact on the world and make a difference in the world. So that's all.
Thank you. Do you mind if I add one little anecdote?
Please.
It was a lot of fun, and we had, with staff's help and Aaron's help, we had a full city council meeting where the second graders were the city council, and we gave them a question. What would you like to see in an indoor rec center? And I had, of course, tons and tons and tons of great ideas. And I whispered into the mayor, the second grade mayor's ear, ask your council how they're gonna pay for this. And that's when I think fun began, because it was all easy before that, I just named things. And there was one little girl who was, she set the bar for you all. She said, well, I have lots of money, I'll just pay for it. And we got her name. So thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, with that, we'll call the city council meeting to order and start with you, Garrett, roll call.
Aaron, Katie Sweeten,
Norman Larson.
Nathan Lowerson will not be able to attend tonight, and I'm Larry Jacobson.
Levi Robert, city planner.
Justin Long, city manager. Tom Dickinson, city engineer.
Cheryl Buckley, city reporter.
Okay, we have Chad Wright, recreation director, Evan.
Bigelow.
This is what Bigelow, thank you. This is what happens when you stand up in front of people and try to remember first and last name. Code enforcement officer, so we will we're very happy to see you all here tonight. Thank you for coming out. The first thing we'll look at is approval of the September 10th and September 18th minutes from the city council. And if you're so inclined, maybe look at tonight's agenda and perhaps include that in your motion to approve that agenda or take it up separately.
I'll make a motion to approve the previous minutes and tonight's agenda.
Okay, we have a motion from Aaron and a second from Norm to approve minutes and agenda. Any discussion on that, please? Okay, seeing none, let's vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, or in favor, none opposed. Thank you, Cheryl, for a great job on minutes. Appreciate it. Next, we have a public comment period. This is a chance for you to address the city council with anything you would like to speak to us about. We have a full agenda, so if we can, it'll help you maybe make your point if we limit it to 3 minutes, but 3 minutes can be a long time when you're standing up in front of a media crowd like this, so that's probably enough. No, fantastic. So you don't have to sign up for this, but I see we do have a sign up. It's called 4-H Children. Thank you for coming out. You're not children. But please let us know what you'd like to share with the council.
All
We are the 4-H members, and there's a few missing tonight, but we kept animals at the Nibley City's Morgan Farm this year. We're here to present this collage of pictures from the 4-H here and say thank you. It was an awesome opportunity. I got to participate in 4-H with my horse and a 4-H market steer. I raised a pig and a steer this year too, so.
Can you tell us your names, please?
My name is Una Grassi.
My name.
Start over.
My name is Emma.
I'm Jacob Harper. My brother Adam also raised a pig, and there's one other, Zach Larson, also raised a pig.
Great job, and thanks for all the work that you do at the Morgan Farm to get to do the 4-H animals there. I know that Mike and Roxy work you guys pretty hard, right? Yeah. And I'm fixing to overhaul my farm tractor, so we might as well do two of them at once. Thank you very much. Appreciate you all.
Thank you.
And thanks for the collage. Yeah. Anyone else care to address the council? Please tell us who you are and where you live.
And I just want to thank you all for the other 3 of these young people. And it gave my children an opportunity to have farm animals that they would not have been able to have. And it gave them confidence that they didn't previously have. One of my children at name was extremely shy and very nervous about showing her animal, but she was able to go through with that and did very well. I will say for all of these youth that they did very well at State Fair. I included pictures of them both at the farm and at the State Fair, so you can kind of see their progress. All of them got their new market for their pigs. I thought that was exceptional.
Yeah.
And so I just brag a little bit about them. And thank you all very much. It's been transformational for all of them, really. Thank you.
Thank you. You have every reason to be proud.
It was for the past time there, and he went to State Fair and corrected me.
It's a good correcting us. That's really cool. Anyone else like to address the council? Okay, if not, then we'll move on to the planning commission report.
Yeah, so there was a joint meeting with Planning Commission City Council held last week in conjunction with the Planning Commission meeting. On the joint meeting there, and some of you were there, but just wanted to report on that. The city's working with the Utah State University Landscape Architecture and Environmental Planning program, one of the classes up there on the town center, as well as some other issues with housing and open space, conservation, preservation. And the students that just started on this project came and gave an introduction of their project, what they're working on, their approach, and we're excited to work with them. We're gonna be working with them through December and at that point in time we'll have a presentation from them. They're likely to do another joint workshop in December. We're kind of pencil it in for the December 11th Planning Commission meeting, where they'll present kind of their final findings on it. In addition to that, we held a workshop on the general plan and with a focus on the future land use map. There's a draft of the future land use map right now. And we went over that as well as just bringing everyone up to speed on the process we've gone through and how we've gotten where we're at. That project is also likely to wrap up in December. It might go in a little bit into next year, depending on how much the planning commission and city council wants to get into specific items, but we'll probably start that process in December with the planning commission. There was also, in addition to the site plan for the church, for the meeting house for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that is on the agenda. They were issued a conditional use permit for that use. But the city council is the approval authority for the site plan. So that's on your agenda tonight. But they considered that as well for recommendation. And then they held a workshop on the open space subdivision. Continuing to work through that. I feel like we got a little closer to getting some guidance. We hope to draft something up for the planning commission to react to based upon the discussions we've had for the next meeting in October, and then maybe you maybe see it sometime in November.
Terrific. Thank you, Levi. Thanks to the planning commission. We have had report from the Parks and Rec Committee in the past on the agenda. Parks and Rec Advisory Committee had a meeting last night, and Nathan and Aaron and I were there, so we're just gonna wait until staff and council reports to bring you up to date on the Parks and Rec Committee meeting, if that's okay. Ted, you good with that? Okay, we could put you on the spot and say what happened last night, but you may not have heard yet.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So with that, here's something we know you'll really like, and that is a report on the 2025 Children's Theater. Emily?
Well, thank you for the vote of confidence. My name is Emily Rigby. This is Lori Hopkins. I'm the, thank you. I am the production manager and one of the directors for the show this year, and Lori Hopkins directed this year as well. If you don't know, I feel like we're here every year to tell you guys thank you. This year's show is called The Pharaoh's Quest. A couple of few little facts. We are still the longest running city-sponsored children's theater in Utah. Thank you again for that. We were established in 1983. This is our 43rd production. See if I can figure out how to make this work. Great. So like I said, this year we did a show called The Pharaoh's Quest. And if you don't know, we actually write all of our own shows from scratch. The reason that we do that is because twofold. We want to be able to include any child from Nibley that wants to be able to be involved in the show. So if they are brave enough to come and audition for a speaking part, we give them speaking. So we write the show, we do auditions, we rewrite the show. We have about 90 kids this year that had speaking parts, so we have to definitely do a kind of a little bit of an overhaul on that show. But the other reason that we do that is because we really want to make sure that we're choosing shows that we can put in our values, put in things that are a really good focus that we want to have our children here in Nibley focusing on. So this year's show, we focused a lot on courage, friendship, determination, and culture. And I love what Erin said about being your own hero. We talked a lot about that. Our end song said, "You be the hero, stop holding out for a hero till the end of the night. We can be the heroes." And so we try really hard to make sure that this is also a teaching opportunity for the kids, that they are learning something. We took a lot of mix between ancient Egypt and the 80s. It was kind of a strange mashup, and yet it ended up being a lot of fun. So we taught the kids culturally some really great facts about ancient Egypt. We also indoctrinated them into the wonderful music that comes from the 80s. So all of their songs came from the 80s, and we rearranged those and had those ready for our show. This year, a couple of fun facts. We have 231 youth performers on stage crew. We do run most of our stage crew as well as our sound production with teenagers, and we have performers. We had 15 youth volunteers. Those are mostly kids who choose not to necessarily be on stage, but want to come to the park and build scenery and make some things like that. Our adult volunteers were 124. We bring in volunteer hours, which total, if you look down to the next section, of 2,643 hours. We do that because we actually require at least 6 hours by every family that's involved in the show. They don't have to pay to be in the show, but they do have to provide at least 6 hours. Bonnie Darrington, who does all of our grant writing, has to run numbers for all of our grants. And so she estimated that we had approximately 5,500 people over the course of 2 nights that saw the show, which really she has these great numbers. It's like 82% is affected by this show. So again, thank you for the wonderful opportunity that city council, as you continue to support us, that we really are able to provide a really incredible opportunity for the kids in our city. She also, Bonnie Darrington also goes through and figures out the monetary value for our season. She does this based on two things. One is if the person that's volunteering is a professional or a non-professional. So if a person is a choreographer in the profession and they're teaching choreography, they're billed, I guess I would say, or they're paid at a professional rate. And so she ran the numbers, and the total monetary value for the season was $330,000+ based on just the volunteer hours that would have been put into that show, which I think is pretty incredible. One of the things that really stands out from this production is the amount of volunteers that we have, and everything from sewing costumes to painting scenery is all done by volunteers. Next up is our funding, and this is where Nibley City, you guys really shine, and so we want to say thank you again for that. You approved for us to be able to have $4,500 for our show this year. We also had a couple of grants that we worked really hard to get. Interestingly enough, when you start adding up numbers and putting things together, our revenue for the year ended up being $2,500. That was due to a couple of unforeseen circumstances. With the changes in the federal government towards the Utah Museum's tax funding, we lost one of our large grants. And so, and then our other grant actually didn't come in time. So if you're actually looking at numbers, our revenue for the year was $25,000. However, we also like to highlight how much we receive, we would say, in-kind donations. And we share a lot of things with cities, other children's theaters, regional high school, things like that, donate. Yeah. So we ended up saying we really have in-kind donations for the year of $90,000. So we're able to do a lot with the program with relatively a little money because of so many people that step up and use things, including, as you see, the first 5 or 6 things there, a lot of funds from Nibley City with the use of the amphitheater and this building and storage, things that we really truly appreciate. So thank you for that. Our expenditures this year were $7,657.93. If you notice, that is different than what we were supposed to be doing for our income. And this is where I want to take a second and just explain this to you. Because we lost some of that funding, I really wanted to make sure that we were good stewards with that money. And so because one of our funding grants did not come in, we wanted to make sure that we were trying our very best not to use that money. And I understand how government finances work, kind of. And so I know that you did approve that money to be spent, and I really greatly appreciate that. But as good stewards, we didn't feel like we should be using city taxpayer money without that grant coming in, even though the city would have covered it. We wanted to make sure that we were really good stewards with that money. So a couple of things that we do with our money is a lot of the purchases go towards costumes. Like I said, we do costume 231 kids. They do not have to provide anything other than shoes and sometimes a pair of shorts or something. We always make sure we're trying to purchase items that are reusable. We use a lot of those things for things like Nibley movies in the park and other events. We do share this with other local theaters as well. We do also try to shop really in advance after Halloween for good deals. We try to plan, reuse and repurpose so that we are really being good stewards of that money. And we hope that's shown by the way that we respond with the money that we have been given. A little bit of information about our funding. These ones on the left are the ones that we receive our funding from. We are looking into additional funds this year because we don't have that Utah Division of Arts and Museums grant. On our budget that you have already approved, you did approve for us to have $9,500 for this year. And again, I just want to say with confidence that we will do our best, that if some of those grants don't come in, again, I understand you'll cover it, but we want to make sure that we are doing our best to bring in funding as well. So these are some of the other foundations that we're working on receiving funding from. And we have a couple of cast members just telling you thank you. Before I move on to tell you what next year's show is, do you guys have any questions about our funding or things that we're doing? And I'm kind of moving through quick. I have other things to work on. We mostly just want to say thank you. But any other questions you have?
The grant that, and I don't want to focus too much on it because you guys do such a tremendous thing. That's where our focus really should be. The funding that did not come through, is that? Is that the,
So the Utah Division of Arts and Museum funding, we will not get, that's the one that Trump shut it down, it's gone for last year. However, I know this messes with government, I'm sorry, Amy, I'll have to apologize to her. Like, the Utah Raptor actually came in, I think, like a couple of days after fiscal year is closed. So it's in the account, it's in there now, but it didn't make it in time. And that was just, they had some delays for the processing end. So that didn't make it in. Again, we actually have asked for an increase this year from them, hopefully to cover some of the loss from the Utah Division of Arts and Museums. We know that everybody else in town is doing the exact same thing, so kind of waiting to see. But we run, we have a higher, like more kids than some other theaters in town that have more funding, and so we're trying to kind of show those numbers. We have quite a few more kids, and hopefully some of that funding will be able to.
thank you.
Yeah. Excited to announce that next year's show is called Stars and Stripes Forever, the Storyful Story. This is, again, an original show. Mary Ann Hale wrote this show. We are really excited to celebrate the centennial of the United States. So we will be celebrating the 250-year anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And we thought, we've done so many different shows and focused on different things, and why wouldn't we take an opportunity to help our kids see the hope and the beauty that comes from these people that fought for the United States. So the story is about Betsy Ross and her making the American flag. We are going to focus a lot on the symbols of the flag. We are hoping to actually have a living flag at the end of the show with our children in red and white and blue and stars and things like that. And so that is one of our hopes. We also are going to hopefully be displaying every flag that has ever been made for the United States, starting with the 1776 flag up until now. So just a couple of really fun things. We have started chatting a little bit with Parks and Rec, but I would just encourage you as a city council that if there is anything else happening that the city is doing for the semi-centennial, maybe we can piggyback off that, like the Heritage Days, maybe change some of those activities from pioneer activities to 1776 activities. I think that would be a great way to, I know there will be a lot of United States next year, but this is one way that we really wanted to focus. Okay, so that was everything, unless you have any other questions. And again, just to say thank you. We have so many people approach us every year, there's cities that say, we want our kids to be part of this. Lori has had people specifically buy homes in Nibley so that their kids can be part of the show. And the kids that are coming from this show are going on. We have kids that are performing at BYU. We have kids that perform at Cash Theater Company. It's really making a difference in the lives of children. So thank you very much.
Great job.
Yeah, thank you for all the work you put into it.
We love it. It's a lot of work and we love it. So thank you. Yep.
Okay, here's something that I think you'll like just a little bit less, but not much.
Hey.
Let's turn to a development agreement with Apple Creek subdivision, phase 1, First Amendment. And this was on second reading during our last council meeting. And we voted to continue that discussion to this meeting. Cheryl, I can't make my computer access Teams, but would you remind us the motion that's on the floor that, thank you, that we will continue discussion on?
The motion that is to continue ordinance 2529 to allow discussion between staff and the proponent regarding fee in lieu for trail until the next meeting.
Yeah, so what was the motion before the motion to continue? So main motion
The
was,
motion before was to approve with a fee in lieu of the trail service.
so that's the motion that we saw. Okay, with that background, Levi, you have some additional information for us and the proponents here, and we welcome you to come up after Levi.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. Most of this I'm gonna turn over to the proponent, but we did meet with the developer and discussed the motion and what the developer proposed to do is to provide some more detail on the value of that this development brings to the city, the benefits just that weren't brought up necessarily to this extent in the last when this has been heard by the council before. I did display what has been provided to the city and all this information is in the packet. But maybe I'll explain this one and then Sean, if you or Clay want to get into the next detail, you can, but they provided this map that shows, I think, a little bit more clearly the conservation space. So if you look at the purple and then kind of the blue color, that's the conservation area right now on this lot. If you, as far as what would change with this subdivision, you would take away the purple and then you would add all the green area. So you can see the difference there, and it is a net increase of about 2/3 of an acre by adding that, and just this just shows that a little bit more clearly than without the colors in there. Uh, there was an additional document in the packet, and I've basically just copied and pasted it into this presentation. So if the proponent wants to explain this in more detail, this was just provided directly to the council, hasn't necessarily been analyzed or anything by city staff. So I would suggest that the proponent can just explain this directly, address this directly. There's a couple of slides here, this chart, and then there's some additional kind of bullet points on some benefits. So I don't know if you want to do
Yeah,
that,
Sean,
Sean,
would
or
you like to come up and talk to us about this proposal?
Sure, let me explain what Civil Solutions did and with previous.
Perfect, yeah, you can both have a crack at it, that'd be great.
Alright, so my name is Clay Schaffner with Civil Solutions Group, and I'm here to kind of explain the first video that Levi was going over. The intent of this, and I appreciate you guys giving us a chance to come up here and talk, is just to hopefully provide some additional clarification on the net benefit for the city. I think in the last conversation, we didn't do a great job of providing clarity on what this proposal provides to the city. Right, so hopefully through this discussion and through some of these bullet points, we hope not to take much time, but we do want to provide some clarity on some of the points that we do. So I'll go through this one. All right, so this first section here, Levi mentioned it a second ago, we're providing additional 2/3 of an acre to the city as a designated conservation. A pro that you get with this subdivision is it goes from a conservation easement, which is shared with the buildable lot, in which the delineation of said conservation easement is a little more difficult to enforce, right? So if someone wanted to build on the lot as is, the city would have to come out and would have to measure and actually go find the boundary, whereas this is a clear delineation of where that conservation land is, and it's in addition to what there was previously dedicated as a conservation. Right, so that's the first point we wanted to make. We tried to assign a numeric value to this, just for the city to see, but we would put it based on the price of land right now. The city would gain about $167,000, of land there. Granted, that's a rounded number, and it is hard to measure that with sort of officially appraisal, but based on market values, that's typically what you'll see for that. The next one is it transfers easement, transfers the trail rights to the city, so it goes from Levi, can you go back one slide? So you can see down there on the bottom of the page, kind of that crosshatch. that is the proposed. This is the proposed trail easement, or trail right of way, correction. So previously, or existing right now, is a trail easement in which, if you look closely, you can kind of see this, sorry. I'm a little shaky here, let's see if I can, that line that kind of creates this triangle, that's the existing trail easement. Right, and then the crosshatch is the proposed trail right of way. And so the actual ownership would be transferred and the right to build in that area would be transferred directly to the city. And it's a nice, consistent width on that. You can go to back to the next one because we appreciate you. So that's the point we wanted to make there. I'm sure Sean might have some stuff to add there, but that's just kind of a summary of what we're proposing to bring it to the city. That would be a more concrete trail corridor to this. And then increased annual revenue based on the tax on the additional lot. So those are the three points we wanted to make that we were able to establish an actual metric to. So we've taken some time to kind of come up with some numbers here to show the net benefits to the city of about $207,000. And so that is obviously a net benefit to the city. And then I'll pass it over to Sean. He's going to talk about some of, not necessarily measurable metrics of benefits to the city, but he's going to talk more on some of the perceived non-measurable benefits to the city. So I'll pass it to him.
I feel like what happened when we spoke last time is I didn't do a good job of really expressing where I think the value is to the citizens in this. And where I think that, and I'm sorry about that. I've been thinking about it for so long and I just feel like everybody's the same place that I am sometimes. I don't really get it, but actually, Levi, could you go back to the first? Is anybody in the line? Like if I walk away from the mic, is it gonna cause problems?
So
We,
Go ahead.
yeah, we don't know who's online because we broadcast this on YouTube. So,
I'll just take
yeah.
it.
yeah.
I suspect there's probably about 50,000 people watching.
More than the two I heard still. So we talked about this a little bit before, and I really appreciate those solutions putting this together. One of the things that I told you last time I was here was that because of the process that we went through, the conservation area was all delineated and determined before the roads were laid out, before the lots were laid out, before there was any idea of where any of the public right of ways would be. And so with the old delineation, one of the problems with that, I think, from the city and the citizens' perspective, is that the only place where the citizens actually have contact with this conservation easement is this corner right here. I don't know what current ordinance is, honestly, about where fences go relative to conservation space and how you regulate the low fence and high fence and opaque fence and not opaque fence. But there's a risk that this could be fenced differently than the intent of the conservation easement if it stays the way that it is. I don't know how big of a risk, but there's a risk there. And so a big part of this was really because this is primarily use state conservation. The more that it's continuous with public right of way, the more value it has for the city. So I think that we increase the value that way, and that's one of the things that's not really material. It's very difficult to quantify, right? The other thing, and Clay started to talk about this, but this trail easement right here. What happened when we originally did this is I wanted the city to take that easement. The city didn't want to take responsibility for it, which I understand. But the way that I preserve the easement, the city doesn't own that easement. I own it personally. And right now, there are conditions on that easement that if I don't like the use, then I can just turn it off. And that easement follows whoever owns the property. So if we don't do something about this, I'm pretty easy to work with. If we don't do something about this and this ownership transfers to somebody who's less easy to work with, there's the possibility that this just goes away. If we do this, then this is buildable and it's guaranteed. But when we run through the numbers, whether we say that the city's getting $270,000 worth of value and split the difference based on the appraisal values for the comps that I looked at. But technically, if we could get access, and access is the issue, right? But if we could get access, then technically all of this is potentially open and this is open. And it made a lot of sense to just donate the extra property, the easement, the conservation easement, and make it non-buildable and just be done with it. So whether it's $207,000 or $250,000 or $150,000, there is a solid numerical financial benefit to the city because you don't have to negotiate with somebody and purchase that access is being donated. So the exchange of value is basically, from my perspective, I'm giving up all of the, well, not all of the control, but I'm giving up all of the control of really over all of this area. And I'm trading it for certainty on what can be built here and certainty on what can be built here. I think that's the proposal in a nutshell. Because right now, this is all buildable anyway. So this is all buildable outside of the conservation easement. Rules and regulations, that's just buildable as a building lot. Same thing with this area right here. You could put a principal residence in either one of those, you could put a principal residence in ADU, you could put all kinds of stuff. And what we're doing is we're saying, all right, we will restrict all of that. Say that these are just gonna be 2 residential lots. And we're basically giving over the conservation easement access control the city for the rest of it. So I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. Can we go to the table? Not that one, the next one. Just want to make sure that we covered this. Okay, so separate the conservation from the buildable lots makes the oversight and enforcement easier. This will do a better job of protecting the stream and wetland and pond because it just creates larger boundaries around those things. And then creates the trail loop or the opportunity for the trail loop. And it really fits better with what I had in mind for protecting those critical events first place. This also caps lots 36, so there won't be any more discussion about is it a 39 lot subdivision, is it a 35 lot subdivision, is it a 36 lot subdivision. This by turning all the stuff outside of those 2 lots over to conservation easement, that's done. There's nothing else that can be done with that. All the rest of the other large lots are already kind of split like this, and so it's just not. This would have been in the subdivision. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, $207,000 plus or minus 50%. I don't know, but there's a value there. And as far as the proposal for the $37,000, I think that it was a fair question. And I think that it's a valuable question, and it's something that everybody needs to be. My answer to that is I really can't afford to do it. I can still manage my vision with the land with a single lot. But I can't afford to give the city that kind of certainty. The primary driver for that is that I'm assuming that the canal company and the costs associated with the canal company are gonna be somewhere in the $60,000 range, which was the last quote that I got 4 years ago. They could be anywhere from that to, we just don't know until we have a final design. And that eats up any margin that I might have or incentive that I might have for giving it control. So I'm happy to take any questions. But happy to take questions. I'd love to work with you guys. I really would. I mean, we brought this proposal in good faith. I put everything out on the table. I didn't hold anything back for negotiation. There's no foul on this. I just came in good faith with what I thought would work. And, if we can work it out, that's great. I think it's a win for the citizens, for the city and for me. If we can't work it out, then it's fine. You know, I still like you guys. But I feel more comfortable with going forward with investing in the property and with implementing the vision that I have for managing that conservation space that we have some sort of restore. So. Anyway. If there are any questions for me, Mayor, I'm happy to take them. If not, I can sit down and shut up while you guys talk.
So the, go back to the slide with the lot. The ownership of the newly formed conservation, will that tie into one of their lots or is it gonna be HOA or who's gonna own and maintain the HOA, the conservation?
I don't really care. You guys can tell me. You know, my idea, my thought is that it probably gotta be, it makes a lot of sense for it to be deed restricted attached to one of those lots, not both of them. There's also like, because I don't know that like remote stewardship is a good idea for a conservation lot. But I don't have strong feelings about that. If there's a better idea than that, then I'm certainly open to it. But right now, I'm thinking it would probably be attached to lot 36 or lot 37. And maybe it can be transferred between lots, but I really think that whoever owns it ought to have a stake in it. Like they ought to be impacted.
They ought to have to look at it.
Yeah,
Or get to look at it.
yeah. I want them to get to look at it, but if they're not taken care of, I want it to happen. Yeah.
But it'd be private ownership, subject to the terms of conservation lots. With the amended development agreement, which was codified in ordinance.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that that's what the proposed management agreement that we submitted a management plan. I'm pretty sure that's what the management plan says, but Norm, if you wanted to change that for whatever reason, I think I have no.
I just wanna make sure it's not overgrown with weeds or make sure it's taken care of, because I think now you just have animals on there or that's part of the tents.
Yeah, we took them off because they were making this, so right now it's just grassland.
Yeah, that approach works, I think, very well in a similar open space subdivision at the north end of Hall Road, Cottonwoods. Which I think came just before this one in time, but the conservation lots are private land. People put a horse on it. People put tractor art on one of them, which I think that's sad to see tractors melting into the ground with them.
Let it in and keep the air.
Okay, Sean, if we have questions as we go along, I hope we can ask you to come back up and answer them.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Clay as well, thank you.
All right, thanks.
With that, council, I'll turn the discussion and consideration over to you. Again, the motion that you're discussing now is to accept a lot amendment, the conservation amendment, including requirement of $37,000 fee in lieu of paving the trail right of way.
And maybe I should answer for disclosure. I'm friends with Sean Dustin, like a lot of us. I fix his car. I hired him to help me something on my higher property, and it's from probably something in Smithfield, Healthyville, judge my opinion or my role, but I don't know. I should probably just bring that up. So for the dedicated of the trail, let's say that the one property just south of it, we decides to move the trail, but then they're short of setbacks from the back of their lot. So can then we negotiate with the other subdivision and give them some of this to get the trail we want to, or is it just an easement that it has to either be a trail or not? Does that make sense, my question?
I think so, but I'm gonna let Levi and Tom try to.
No, I'm not sure if I quite understand
We
the
might have
question.
to bring up maybe the pixel viewer to show how this property aligns with undeveloped property to the south, and that's where your question is, right?
Isn't this
I
10,
mean,
is it 10 feet?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah. I think that's what we said last time, we needed, where's it 5 feet, we need a 10-foot trail. I have to look at the drawing.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things to unpack with your question.
Yeah.
And with the question you asked before the question.
Yeah.
And in the proposed development agreement, in the details of the proposed development agreement, one of the things that's in there is that the conversion to the right of way will not impact the existing setback requirements. So the back of the house or the side of the house could be closer to the trail than it might ordinarily be. So it's that's also something we could discuss, but it ties into whether the lot is actually buildable or not. But the easement that's proposed is 10 feet.
10 feet. Yeah, my question was, we have a subdivision that's going to the south, and more likely this trail is probably gonna go on to that subdivision. But if that's gonna affect the setbacks of that one, could we give up some of this right of way to them to build on or to use for their setbacks and move the trail over there? Does that make like do a land swap?
Yeah, I don't know if it would even be necessary to swap the land to require that, at least not as proposed with an open space subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
The city can, if they proceed with an open space subdivision, the city can require dedication of any and all of that open space to the city. That's within the code. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the applicant's going to agree to that. If they don't agree to it, it could kill the whole project. Whatever the city wants, but that is within the code, and because it's an option, it's not a standard subdivision. That's allowed to do that. So I'm not sure if trading it really is necessary. If we could just require it. Of that property to the south.
If they do an open space subdivision.
If they do an open space subdivision, which is what they have submitted an application for, but they haven't received any approval. We've had one iteration, and I don't know how that's gonna end up. It could develop differently to the south. I think and this,
Are you
let's,
trying to show us the parcel viewer?
geez, why did I do that?
Sorry, bye.
Yes.
Look, I only bring that question because I get the impression the chance of the trail going right where this is pretty slim because of the elevation restrictions and stuff. Whereas this other one looked like it was more of a natural place for it.
Sorry.
What was the word after place to be?
I think that's why I'm weird wanting to. It's there's almost like a quick trail.
Sorry. Having a hard time navigating this. There we go. Ah, go away. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, if this subdivision proceeds the way that, yeah, as an open space subdivision, I think there could be an opportunity to do that. If it's a standard subdivision and they want to develop out the whole thing, I think it's going to be more difficult to do that. But
So
Yeah.
just where that hump comes out, so if he wanted to build a house there, then we could give him 10 feet of the proposed trail in order to give him enough footage or footprint to put a house. I guess that's my question, but doesn't look like I'm making me not like.
yeah, I mean, the layout that we've reviewed shows open space in that area. So I think there could be some, but like I said, that they could bring forward a different proposal. We've had some discussions on, at this point, it's pretty hypothetical because there's nothing that's been officially presented to the planning commission on this. But yeah, I mean, you can try to predict that. There's a few different ways to do it, working on that property for sure.
There was a meeting that I was on with Zoom when you were discussing this opponent and you were, I get the impression staff was feeling that the 37,000 wasn't necessarily they thought it was required or overstretched. They thought the trade was just good enough.
Yeah, I mean, staff's recommendation remains the same as it was before. Now, that said, this is a legislative decision. So if the council wants to attach any conditions, we talked to the attorney about this, and especially in this case where you would be, by approving this, you would be granting some exceptions to the code. He said that wouldn't be overreach to require it. But yeah, staff's recommendation is approval without that. Without the 37,000. But it's really the city council's decision and discretion on that.
Yeah, I think it's within the council's discretion to ask for it, and then it's within the proponent's discretion to accept it or stick with the subdivision that they have.
Right, at the end of the day, it's an agreement, right, between the city and the applicant. So if the city council agrees to it, or doesn't necessarily mean the applicant does. So at that point, I guess it's essentially just denying it.
But if either party decides not to go through it, that doesn't nullify the subdivision.
Mayor, I'll give you substitute motions just
Okay.
for discussion. I motion to approve as staff recommendations, so we approve this without the payment and with.
Okay, so move as originally presented, okay. Second from, okay. First, motion from Norm, second, okay, to approve as originally presented, and we'll treat that as a substitute motion, and that's fine. So that's what we're discussing.
Yeah, it's tough to put a value to something. I think we all like the open space, the value there. It's nice that it can't be built on. I know there's a lot of restrictions with open water and canals, so I think there's some. It'd be nice if we had like a maintenance plan, but nobody's, as far as I know, is complaining about it. So it sounds like it's similar to all the other open space subdivisions that if there's violation, just need to know who's over it to reviews or take care of it.
Right.
And the nuisance ordinances and such would be enforced, for sure. As are the other requirements of conservation space privately. I think there's some neat hydrology in there, and some neat topography and so on. I'm glad that either the existing proposal. Even a little bit more glad that we're conserving that. Karen,
From our last discussion, and you know, this discussion about the value. I mean, if you want to be the devil's advocate, you could argue having non-buildable around you is a huge benefit to the landowner, because you don't have any neighbors. The real value, and we discussed this the last time, is the trail. Maybe we just missed our point on in the original, not getting that trail put in. The connection of that trail, I think, is greater value to public safety. But obviously, it doesn't sound like that, in a lot of these actions, so. Which is the worst to use. If the trail, I think, is one of the real benefit to the public, it's new to city. And this gives the city space so that eventually we can put it in, I guess. If we're going to get there. Just the vote on this one, we could put in any of the trails that were planned in the beginning. Just want to change the ordinance.
well, there's a sidewalk that goes from cul-de-sac south.
One of our many trails to nowhere.
Yeah, in an ideal world. The Apple Creek subdivision and the property owned by Johnson, is that right, to the south, would have developed simultaneously. There's some things we can't control. Go ahead, John.
In fairness to the council and to the planning commission at the time. A lot of the benefit to that trail is because the Mount Vista subdivision went in. The Mount Vista subdivision was a glimmer in somebody's eye at the time that this was approved. So I wouldn't be I wouldn't be the city too much over missed opportunities. I think was something gonna happen there in Mount Vista? Probably, but nobody knew when or how or what was gonna, how that was gonna develop, so. Yeah, but it's a missed opportunity, but. Well, I guess you don't have to beat yourself up off there, because none of this was your. It was all undeveloped at that time.
Yeah, just having walked over there, the trail that, the sidewalk that goes over to Mount Vista, I mean, it is a pretty steep hill. So I mean, whatever trail goes in there, I think it's not straight up the hill, right? Like, it's gonna be wheelchair accessible, be able to ride a bike. You might have to think about, is there gonna be a curve or back and forth or something, because it's pretty steep getting up the hill right there.
And I guess that's why I was backing down, but I think the chances of going where it's dedicated are pretty slim.
Right.
But I would just hate to tie up that space if the trail's no gonna go on. Maybe you can get wider. I'll go gatekeepers. We can have something like.
Council, I sense from the discussion and Kate's hint. To both, that we are ready to vote on this. Is there an objection to voting? Seeing none, then I will go ahead and ask Cheryl to call the roll. This is for acceptance of the amendment to the Apple Creek subdivision. Ordinance 2529. And this is the final vote. So Cheryl, we'll turn it to you, please.
Councilmember Larson, what is your vote?
In favor.
In favor. Councilmember Mann,
In favor.
Councilmember.
In favor.
Thank you.
I see that 4 in favor and unopposed, and so the amendment is enforced. Thanks for your extra work on this, gentlemen, council, staff, thanks for helping us in this.
We'll try to make it worth your while.
Okay, next, let's talk about ordinance 2517. This is annexation and zoning assignment of parcel 0011. 9 acres and assigning the zoning of R2A residential. This is our second reading on this. Levi, I don't remember that anyone asked for any additional information from staff. Am I correct on that?
Not necessarily, but I did add one thing. This wasn't in the packet, but just there was a comment made by Nathan on this, on the future land use map and what the use should be. We're going through the general plan process right now. We've had, several or probably 4 iterations of that future land use map. At this point in time, the draft that we have does show that property is detached residential, which we feel would be in support of this application. I think Nathan at least wanted to take a look at that. I think was part of the reason for taking this to second to second reading. So I just wanted to point that out. But other than that, don't have any other information.
And we have the a representative of the proponent here. Going to give you a chance to address the council. You don't have to, but if you answer questions, if get into discussion, that'd be great.
Okay,
Give you that opportunity now as well.
yeah, so Blaine with Heritage Land Development, yeah, just looking forward to, I sent over a preliminary, just so we had kind of an idea, just to show that the roads are lining up with the overall plan. And-
Oh, right. Yeah, that was the other thing.
and the
I didn't-
neighborhood.
Yeah.
But yeah, just looking for
Is it
the,
appropriate to show that? It hasn't been to the planning commission or anything, but it's.
I should have got that on there. If you bear with me.
Yeah.
Don't read too many of my emails. I can search for it. Let's see here.
Thanks for reminding us of that thing.
but
Yeah.
yeah, other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that was my oversight. Sorry about that. Why does it keep changing that?
You're doing great, Levi.
By default, it just keeps. Yeah, so that's what they've shown there.
And is it possible to show the zoom way in on the parcel viewer in the upper, sort of upper right? I don't know if we can get that fast. Where do I do that? What's in it? Either way. Isn't it fun for me to ask Levi to do all this?
He does.
Be completely on it, and he does. Completely unencumbered by any of the details.
Keep inviting him back every time.
There you go. Oh, it didn't, not showing. Shows on my end, not on yours. Why it's doing that. Anyway,
Okay. Council, again, preliminary plat here, this is not what you're voting tonight, it's an idea of what the proponent has in mind. So I'll turn it to you, please, for discussion and consideration.
I motion to approve ordinance 2517.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion from Norm, second from Aaron to approve 2517. That would be the annexation and zoning assignment for parcel 0011. Zoning to R2A residential. Discussion? Are we ready to vote?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I
Please.
think Nathan had a concern, but I haven't heard from him about anything. And this seems to make sense to me, like a good use of this space, so. I'm ready to vote, everyone else is.
I- Anyone opposed to voting? Seeing no opposition, Cheryl, if you would, again, call the roll for us, please.
Councilmember Larson,
In favor.
Councilmember Sweeten. In favor. Councilmember Mann.
In favor.
Councilmember Menzel.
In favor.
Thank you.
4 in favor, none opposed, so the annexation and zoning is accepted. Thank you.
We got him done before 7:30. He's usually here till midnight.
What do you think? You've been very patient and our senators. Thank you for that. All right, next we have a public hearing. This is on resolution 2530. This would be kind of a new theme for us, but that's nothing wrong with that, doing new things. This would amend the Nibley City 2025-2026 budget to include the purchase of software for asset tracking, and code enforcement or asset management. So Justin, I know that you're ready and raring to go.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. And I just, like I said, my tenure here, I'm pretty sure this is the first time this has ever happened. So you're witnessing history in the making. So thank you for the opportunity. If you just a little bit of more history, I guess, when we went through the budget this fiscal year, we talked about a couple of items that staff was wishing to include in the budget, but they were kind of bigger expenses and they were ongoing continuing expenses. And at that time, we talked about whether to put it in the budget at that time and have those more discussions and be more open about what those things are because they were such a big deal. And before we actually pulled the trigger and spent the money, or just leave it out of the budget, have a discussion and amend the budget. So that's the process that was chosen. A couple of meetings ago, we had staff come give the presentations on the different pieces that we're talking about, two major ones, the asset management and the code enforcement. And at that time, we received direction to bring back a budget amendment to purchase those things. And so today, I want to present that to you. And really, there's one other thing that I needed to present as I got into this and I was looking. I found a mistake, a small mistake, so I wanted to correct that mistake, and I'll explain that a little further here in the next slide. And it wasn't a big one, but I'll explain it. And then purchasing the hardware and the software for code enforcement and the asset management, and then really kind of the fourth kind of part of the whole thing to tie it all back together is to make sure that we rebalance the budget. And so we're going to kind of hit on each one of those things. This is a clip out of the spreadsheet that builds our budget. If you notice in the right here, I have a screen, or in green, excuse me, this is how we charge our admin fees. And admin fees are charged to the water, sewer, and stormwater department for things that are shared across the city. Things like utility billing, things such as Tom's, our city engineer's time. It's a way of being able to take money out of those water, sewer, and stormwater funds because they are enterprise funds. They're supposed to act as their own business, money in, money out, and it stays and is used for those purposes only. But a lot of this stuff is used across the city, and so some of it is taken by the general fund, and so to kind of balance all that out, we just charge those enterprise funds and put that money into the general fund. And if you notice, I tried to make it a little more detailed and a little more cleaner on what we charge the water, sewer, stormwater funds to move into the general fund, and that's that stuff in the green over here. And so these orange cells are the numbers that are put into the expenses on the water, sewer, and stormwater departments, and that happened. But what I failed to do was, because of the expense out of there, I forgot to put that number into the revenue on the general fund, and I left the old one here. Just, I didn't delete the cells, I just kind of wanted for history and method. So they were referencing the revenue side of it into the general fund was not the same number. I know you can't really see that, but it was off by $3,000 or $4,000 in each one. So as part of this, I corrected that issue. Just wanted you to be aware of that. So that's the first big kind of budget amendment that we're talking about today. The second one is actual bigger meat is the purchase of the software and hardware, and that's going to be $12,000. Now, we had a line in the budget for code enforcement that was $5,000, and our proposal is to move that up to $13,000 to pay for the 12. That would leave one in there for kind of fluff or mailing and other things that come along with code enforcement that we need to handle. So we're looking at that as kind of using that $4,000 savings. And in addition to that, let me back up for just a second. When we went to staff and said we're going to amend this budget, I made it clear is I didn't want us to come here with just our handout saying we needed more money. I wanted them to look at the potential and the possibility of other places that we could take money from, maybe reduce expenses and be able to show that we were getting as far as we could, come back where we could, what we felt like was important, or leave what we felt was important to help cover this cost. So while we're not here before you telling you that we're just asking for these amounts, out of our savings, where we have a solution for some of this to kind of stop on that, and the code enforcement is honestly a little bit more difficult than the other one. Because planning, it comes out of the planning department that really doesn't have a lot in it, doesn't have a lot of wiggle room other than projects, and that is not where we wanted to take this. This is not a one-time money kind of thing, so we could probably, to be honest, just knock this money out of the project. We have a couple of projects in the planning, such as the town center plan. I think we scheduled $20,000 to have that done. I think the students that was in were closer to 15,000. There's a couple other projects we probably could have just got this money out there, but we wanted to be more transparent, show that we were willing to cut where we could, and because it was an ongoing thing, try to just be very transparent about it. And I'm proud of the staff. We'll talk more about what the public works did on their side, but in this case,
So snuck means legally move money within funds. Without this snuck, we could have snuck the money. But I think that means legally move funds without amending the budget.
you're right.
Okay, just to be clear.
My apologies. Our intent was to not move.
Right.
We wanted it to be as open as possible, and so.
There's a word, that people look for when governments are targeting.
It's only the first time I've ever done this.
On YouTube too, everyone's watching.
The expense, we also, like I was saying, the county department's pretty tight, so we took just out of administration in the general fund, out of the department expenditures, we reduced that by $4,000. And so we're kind of looking at this as an $8,000 cut, so really, we're looking at a $5,000 increase in expense this year with what we're proposing, and going forward, it's gonna be about $6,400 per year, every year, if you want to make this decision to move forward with that. Is that cool? This is just asset, this is code enforcement.
Okay.
Yeah, so this one's just code enforcement.
Can I clarify something though, Justin? For that 6,400, 4,000 of that would come off because we have $5,000 in that code enforcement line, and we think we only need 1,000. So really, as far as what we would budget, I think it would be about 2,400 more than what we currently budget in each year. So instead of 5,000, it'd be 7,400. Does that make sense? No, we don't need to add an additional 6,400 to the budget. We would really just be adding another 2,400 to what's in
On
there.
top of what's there now.
Yeah.
Unless.
Right,
All that.
right,
When we
right.
come through with the next.
I mean, if you just compared it to this year's budget for next year, it'd be 2,400 more.
So total for this is $6,400. We budget 5,000 in code enforcement. So we have to put that up at a minimum. 1,400, probably an extra 1,000 just for extra mailings and printing and kind of just other things that go along with code enforcement.
Camera, yeah.
So, but it is, once you purchase this, you purchase some hardware and software, but then to keep the software alive, it is the full $6,400 a year. Clear?
Yeah.
All right, so that's that one. The other one is the asset management, and this one, honestly, it gets messy with just trying to budget because it's across those different departments. All departments in the city, or at least Public Works, will use this. The Parks Department, the Streets Department will use it. And so this goes back to those admin fees and missing those admin fees. And so we did the same thing with looking at where we could cut money out of the existing budget, and we came up with about $15,000 that we felt we could comfortably cut across multiple lines and multiple departments throughout the city. Public Works trainings, the Streets Department maintenance, Parks maintenance, and the sewer maintenance budget were all reduced a little bit to total $50,000 to help offset that 18. So you're looking at about a $3,000 increase to this budget this year. Now, we would probably hold those same numbers, but so you're not gonna see an $18,000 increase, but the software costs $18,000 a year to keep alive. But that's kind of why we felt this was a bigger decision to need to come before council to make sure you were clear on that, you understood that this is kind of a long-term investment in taking care of our roads, water valves, or water pipes, and the assets that we have in the ground. And it just gives us a way to be more efficient with those, and we believe that, you know, hopefully with taking those cuts out of those maintenance, that the software will increase our efficiency enough to help offset that as well. So clear on that. And then really the last part of that is just balancing the funds. And so we took the steward of the water, we were already putting money into savings, so we're just putting a little bit less than saving. And because of that error that I mentioned in the first, it's a very small amount, a couple $1,000 actually is what we're not putting into savings and is going into the budget for expenses. The other is true, the opposite is true, excuse me, for stormwater. Stormwater, we actually had to pull, we were pulling a little bit of money out of savings, we're pulling out $1,000 more out of savings to cover this than what we were doing in the previous post budget. And then the last and final thing is just to balance the general fund. We're putting money into the general fund, but because this is where it's real messy, because of the money that came out of the water, sewer, stormwater into the general fund, we're actually putting more money from the general fund in savings into the capital projects. Should know that number up, okay, but it's actually putting more money towards, so we're putting more money from the general fund into savings. And so just those little changes, just to show you how messy it gets, whereas 19 different lines in the budget, and those are the lines that are outlined in the resolution, had to be amended or adjusted to make these changes and to balance the budget. So hopefully that's clear. But what we tried to show is that we think the software is going to help us be more efficient and more effective. And we tried to cut out what we felt we could in the budget to help cover this cost. And we understand that it's a big expense moving forward. And so we wanted to make sure that you guys were on board with that. You understood that and got your blessing before we did it. Happy to clear up that muddy mess if anybody's got questions.
Well, thanks for that presentation. Do you have questions for Justin before we go to the public hearing?
Maybe just once, so these yearly software subscriptions, is there like a 5-year or just they're year to year? So if we decide it's not working, we just cancel that. Obviously, we'll be out. We'll still have the hardware that we bought. Just no.
Yeah, correct. They are year to year. And we expect there's not a clear promise of escalating costs, but I do know that the asset management have shown us a history of not raising or increasing the costs. And so I'm not sure how what the increase of costs have been for the code enforcement, but I have to assume that at some point all things go up. But that's what it is current in the foreseeable future and what we have promised to us.
Thank you. Question, Faye?
Just a little understanding on what the programs are doing. I'm assuming the asset management is helping us track what we've already got and what needs to be replaced at certain times and preparing for budget. That I'm a little less intuitive in the code enforcement software.
Okay, well, you nailed the asset. It's literally just to keep track of everything that we have as an asset out there, all of our water valves, all of our water lines, our wells, and all of our sidewalks, just kind of everything that the city owns and maintains, and it allows us to put it into a program to be able to analyze where the best bang for our buck is and what needs to be done. So for example, fire hydrants need to be flushed every year, 3 years, I'm sorry, I'm not years and all the details, but we can go in there and track which ones need it this year, we plan it out, and also just repairs. If we end up repairing the same fire hydrant 5 times, well, it might just be as easy to replace the hydrant with the new. So it's a way to really manage and try to maximize the efficiency and push your dollar as far as possible with the things that are out there in the ground being used every day by the citizens. So that's the asset management. Please.
The way I understood it from Steve's presentation, it's also a way to track costs within his department. For example, how much money do we spend on flushing fire hydrants each year? How much money do we spend? You know, the big things we can see, but there's a lot of little things that But this would allow tracking of that, the little things turn into big things when there's lots of them. So labor costs as well.
And the code enforcement, you guys will jump in here and correct me if I say anything wrong. It's a way to be more efficient, be able to track things and save time. Right now, things are tracked in spreadsheets, they're tracked as, emails and things, and there's not like a central place, an easy place to be able to go to. For example, if we're giving warnings, for us to be able to know if that's a second offense or not, we've got to go to that history, look in that history, find whether or not that person's already been warned, hasn't been warned, and be able to know exactly how to follow up and follow through with the case. There's a lot of things like that. There's a lot of things that a lot of paperwork, I guess you could say, that Evan sits in his office and hammers out and sends and hammers out and sends. It automates a lot of stuff where it'll automatically, based on, you can, when you first set it up, you say, I need this to go out at this time on this date, and it will automatically do it for you. So I think the big thing for the code enforcement really is time saving. And in that way, Evan's able to be out there spending more time doing important, actually making change and enforcing the codes, as opposed to sitting in the office, looking things up, following it up, and doing paperwork.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, that was great. I would just add a couple of detail to that. So it does all that tracking and everything, but it also is hardware that prints out, whether it's a warning or a citation, anything that we give to a citizen, it's right there. So rather than mailing it, we can give it right on the spot, because you have it right there. So it's a lot more timely. And then it has the benefit of, let's say you warn them, the next time you go, it'll come right up. Okay, well, you've warned them 1 or 2 or 3 times, and okay, maybe this should be a citation. Where now you got to go into your calendar and set a reminder and have a spreadsheet to track all of that. It'll automate all of that. It also provides a lot more efficient way for people when they do get a citation to pay. It'll just have a little, QR code or something where they could go on and just pay online rather than having to come into the city office or to do that. So there's that benefit, and just more timely way to communicate with residents. I think Evan's been doing a good job of, if someone's home, to talk to them, if there's an issue, but a lot of times people aren't home. And, when people get whether it's a warning or citation, it's not something pleasant, but I think it's even less pleasant if it happened, 2 weeks ago and now they're hearing about it versus they're hearing about it right when it's there. Yeah.
Yeah, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I was just on the asset, it's 18,000 for the setup and then 18,000 a year. They don't have just ongoing maintenance.
They're actually waiving the setup fee, which is about $17,000, but we're only paying the annual subscription.
Okay.
With that, then, council, with your permission, I will turn this to the public and invite anyone who wishes to address the council on this topic of amending the budget for purchase of these 2 pieces of software. You don't have, Justin's bringing me a list, you don't have to have signed them. Angelica, which is Diane, we're so happy you're here. You could stand up and just say hi if you want to.
I'm dark.
It can't be longer than you anticipated, huh? Yeah, please. Okay, anyone care to address the council on this matter? Going once, twice, 3 times. With that, I will close the public hearing without public comment and move on to the next agenda item, which is the council's discussion and consideration of this budget modification. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 25. Meeting. Let me see.
Okay, so I have a motion from Kay. And a second from Aaron to accept resolution 2530 on the budget amendment. Discussion, please. Garrett?
I just appreciate, that we're trying to be efficient. With the taxpayer money, and I appreciate staff and all the work in doing this, and I think these will help make us that much more effective.
Okay. Other thoughts? I'm gonna spend a minute talking to Levi and Evan about code enforcement, following up a little bit from our when you made presentations to us, okay? Now, let me start by saying that code enforcement is probably, no, it is the most difficult job in this city because it's very, very hard to tell people when they have messed up and to do it in a way that helps them understand where they made a mistake on the codes and things. And helps them understand from an education point of view, why the council has enacted those codes. And why the council's asking you all to enforce the codes that they have adopted. Now, I firmly believe in code enforcement, and this has been a 25-year discussion while I've been involved in this process. And we heard for many, many years that we're just not doing enough in terms of enforcing the codes we have, and what's the point in having them if we don't enforce them. And Evan, with your recent involvement, and Levi, your support of Evan, we're definitely taking a more active role, and that's the right direction. And I appreciate that. At the same time, I worry that buying software that increases our efficiency of code enforcement means that I'm going to get a lot more complaints from citizens that are very unhappy with some of our methods of code enforcement. And I'm going to be frank as I talk about those again, recognizing what a difficult job that is. Probably one of the hardest things for me to hear in 4 years of being the mayor was, why do you want to be, bless you, Chad, why do you want to be the HOA president? Why do you want to enforce what we see as citizens, an arbitrary set of codes? And just be mean about stuff. And so this is a disconnect, I think, that we have, and I think it's a disconnect that hopefully Levi and you, Evan, are willing to work on. Okay, and the disconnect is that our increased effort on education, which I'm glad we have education as a prime objective instead of writing citations, because what we really want to do is modify behavior so that we have a happy, healthy place to live. But I think our process of education is missing an opportunity to explain the intent of the code. And so we talk about the letter of the law and the intent of the law, and they're two different things. And I'm hoping, especially on warnings, that you would agree with me that citing chapter and verse of the code that has been violated doesn't really help people understand why the council enacted that code in the first place, and why we were asking you to enforce that code. For example, parking in bike paths. There's a really, really good reason why we don't allow parking in bike paths, and why we issue warnings, and why we issue citations. And that's because as a cyclist, I know, you all have probably had the experience too. you're riding along in the bike path, maybe on 3200 South, and there's a car parked in the bike path. That is a serious safety hazard to the cyclist, and it's a serious hazard to vehicle traffic as well. But if our warning says you are found in violation of code, that says you can't park in bike paths, there's no opportunity. I think we missed an opportunity to explain, look, this is for the safety of people that use our bike paths, because this is an obstruction in their path and they have to find a way around that. And so I'm hoping that we can take some of the, the suggestion to say, without writing a book, here's the intent of the code. Here's why the council has adopted this code. And this is why we're enforcing the code, especially on warnings. Now, when you get citations, you have to document all the things that they did wrong, because with chapter and verse, because it becomes they have to be cited with something specific in the code. Let's talk about wintertime parking, right? I saw a red line version of our notice that we were going to put out for, I didn't do the red lines, for wintertime parking. And again, it was a notice. This wasn't a warning. It was just education to get in front of when we start enforcing our wintertime parking. And said, look, here's the chapter and verse that says you can't park in the streets during this time, and da. I think the red line version that I saw was much better, that just said, hey, wintertime months that prohibit parking on the street are coming up, so please be aware of that. And we might add, the reason we have wintertime parking and the restrictions in the streets is because we're trying to plow snow. And we're trying to avoid safety issues for the plow drivers and property damage to cars that are parked in the street. So that's my hope, that as we figure out how to achieve modified behavior, which we're being successful at, I thank you for that. As hard as it may be to somehow achieve modified behavior with people, our citizens better understanding why we're out there swinging a stick at them. I think that one of the keys is, and I know this gets hard because it gets into an area of discretionary enforcement. And, what's the difference between discretionary enforcement and arbitrary and capricious, right? I think that a guiding light there is trying to have empathy, trying to put yourself in the citizen's shoes that you're writing the warning or citation for. And if it, you can see why, for example, we have 25 feet of asphalt in front of City Hall, which up until last week, and thanks to Public Works, we're getting stripes on there. That was 25 feet of bike path, because it wasn't striped that there's room for parking and room for bike paths. Now, as a guy that rides past City Hall on his bike, I didn't feel endangered by people parking on the curb out in front of City Hall. And so that might be a case where, I know we're not writing citations for that, but where, even in that case, and this is before it was striped, say, that really doesn't change the outcome of safety for cyclists in the bike path. So that's a case where maybe putting ourselves in the citizens' shoes that are receiving the warning or the citation might help us not have so many people mad at us. I'll give you both a chance to respond to that if you'd like.
Yeah. So I think those are some good points. I do think just a little bit of history on our letters and the way they're written. Until a couple of years ago, they were actually prescribed in city code on how to write them. And when we changed city code, we, at least internally as staff, I did, thought, I don't feel like the letter's broken. I feel like it has all the information needed, so we'll just continue with that. We've since added a little bit more detail on the why, but a lot of times it's buried under all that other information. So I do think that's something we can work on, particularly, with the letters we send, which a lot of times that's how they find out. There are communication, we have phone, Evan takes a lot of phone calls, but usually, a letter is kind of the first thing that people see from us, and we're taking steps to work on that. I do think it is a tough balance, because you do need to tell them what code they're breaking and and really how that relates to whatever they're doing. I don't really know how to get around that. I know that, for example, they're not warnings, but they're kind of an announcement that we're going to start wintertime parking. That's not necessarily, it doesn't come with it any type of allegation that they're doing anything wrong. It was just an announcement. So we do want to be clear to people that this is a warning, and if it's not corrected, it could result in a citation, it could result in these other things. And that was all prescribed in a previous code, and I feel like some of that detail should remain, just so that it's very clear to people and they're not surprised when we do come out and decide to cite them or those other things. But that said, I think there's some modifications that we can make. I think there's some things that some details that maybe we do leave to a citation, rather than getting into every single word that's in there. So I do think there's an opportunity, and that's something we'll do. I also think that Evan, from my observation, has done a lot better job of explaining the why to people. That's something I've always struggled with, because a lot of the codes that we have, I wasn't here when they were enacted. They're not written in a way. I have to kind of come up in my head what I think the council may have, their intent may have been, but that's something we can study, that we can work on, so that we can be better about explaining that. I do think Evan has done that. I've observed in several communications explaining the why, and this is for safety, or this is for beautification, whatever that is needed, even if we have to be generic about it, because we don't know all the reasons why. I think we can explain that better to our residents, and we'll work harder on that. And I do think, and the other thing is, I think with this software, we can incorporate that language into the warning, so that everyone gets a consistent message, which I also think would be valuable.
And I will be happy to tell you whatever I remember about why we might have adopted an ordinance that related to one thing or another.
Yeah, we could work with you and any others.
To help with that too. I don't, again, letter of the law and intent of the law. The letter of the law needs to be very clear, needs to be very cut and dry. And I think if we take our best guess at what the intent was, it's like, well, parking in bike paths. Well,
Yeah, we could definitely do that. I was always careful about it before, but
I'll help you come up with poetic license, because again, I think that's helping people understand the code as opposed to strict enforcement of the code. And
Understood.
I'm willing to take a little bit of poetic license there and take the blame for getting it wrong if I do.
Right.
And then I don't mean to by any means put you on the spot. You're a hard worker. You do it. You're doing what we ask you to do. You're making this a safer place, healthier place. Just not sure how to get people happy about being told that they're not doing things right. And I invite you to give us whatever you'd like to talk about.
I appreciate it, Larry. One thing I would like to point out about this new software is that it will give us the opportunity to differentiate the warning from the citation. So we can change, you could go to one warning, super nice, you could go to the second warning, a little more aggressive. That software allows us to do this consistently throughout the whole process.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's good to know. And above all, I want to stress, I say this every time that I get a chance to talk to you, Evan, about these things. The number one priority that you should have is keeping yourself safe while you're on the city's errand on code enforcement, because we know that there are issues there. There have been issues not in Nibley, but issues in other cities that have resulted in, terrible things that we just don't want to deal with for you and your family and for the city. So please always be aware of your own safety. And we'll help you on that any way we can. Part of it might be the political rhetoric is just not pleasant from stem to stern, from top to bottom. I think that people should always have a healthy distrust for the government, but I think, especially on the local level, we can hopefully find a friendly way to help people become willing participants in what our code asks for. And I think that the way we talk to each other at the national level and the way we talk to each other even at the state and county level, it's not helping. But this is where we make our stand. So that's what I'm asking. It's a tough job. Okay, that's the end of mine. Any other thoughts? So the motion, this is hopefully related to the motion. The motion is for you to accept amendment of budget to buy these pieces of software subscriptions. I do have one specific question. I think I asked you this, Levi, maybe I'll ask you, and maybe Justin or Tom, you can fill it. I'm not a fan, I know this is where we're going. I'm not a fan of subscription pricing for software. I kind of feel like I buy a piece of software, I should be allowed to use it until I'm not happy with it. Now, if I want to buy a new one, I will. What if we decide we're not going to pay the subscription? The software we have seems to be working fine. We paid the subscription 3 or 4 years. We don't seem to get more functionality or new features or anything else. Maybe we get bug fixes. I hate to pay a subscription for somebody to fix their bugs. But what if, did you guys know, what if we just decide to not pay the subscription fee and just use the software we have? Is there a time bomb in there that says, oh, it's not going to work anymore? This is not a critical item for adopting this change. I think it's more of a question we should remember to ask 3 or 4 years from now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't present
Yeah.
if and when that question was asked. I do know that we do own the data, so that if we were to walk away, it's not like we're losing all the data. The data will still be there.
We just have to find another program that would ingest that data.
Yeah, because in the background, it's all spreadsheets and
Okay.
tables.
Is it Excel spreadsheets?
No,
Yeah.
but I don't know the details. Yeah.
Okay. And again, that's not critical for tonight's decision. I think it's something to ask in 3 or 4 years and say, it's painful, what if we like it, but we don't like it at $18,000 a year. We're not getting $18,000 a year of value out of updates, you know?
That's why I asked if it's a locked in contract and. Yeah, no, like it is. But everything's going to the QuickBooks, you gotta.
I know.
update it.
You know,
Where
even my, even Campbell Scientific, my career at Campbell Scientific, we never did that. They're going to. Yeah, okay, so any other thoughts or comments, questions from council, discussion, right? Seeing head nods, I'm gonna ask if anyone objects to voting on this budget amendment. Hearing no objection, Cheryl. Can you call the roll for us, please? Resolution 2530.
Councilmember Larson, what is your vote?
in favor.
Councilmember Sweeten,
In favor.
Councilmember Mann,
In favor.
Councilmember Manza.
In favor. 4 in favor, none opposed, so thank you for being part of the discussion, staff, and thanks for the discussion, council. Okay, so we just press right on through to the end. Okay, is there any objection to, let's say, taking a recess and coming back in session at, we'll see court, okay, thank you, Eric. for allowing us to take a recess, and we'll come back to order, picking up at number 11, that's a site plan approval for a religious meeting house. Levi, if you'll help with this.
Yeah, so Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they've submitted a site plan review application for a 20,000 square foot meeting house. This is at, orient you a little more on the map, but it's 3420 South, 1200 West, right adjacent to the Nibley Meadows subdivision there. Planning Commission approved the concept plan for this, but they also approved the conditional use permit, and they've reviewed the site plan. So this is the site plan, what's being proposed. You can see the building there in the front for the church with parking around the side and on the back. On the back side of the property, there's a little space for pavilion and some recreation space, and then a walkway that leads to what will be the pathway that is going to be built in conjunction with Nibley Meadows along that 1100 West right of way. I should mention also that the applicant is online, so if you have any questions for them, they're on Zoom there. But I'll go through and just go through staff's analysis. This is the landscaping plan that they've submitted, and staff has reviewed this, and they, determined they are compliant with our standards, including for water-wise landscaping. So you can see some in green, the turf, and then some other materials for ground cover in much of the area. And then a number of trees and shrubs planted throughout. This is a rendering of the proposed building. It's all in brick veneer, a couple different shades there, I guess. But that's what it will look like approximately when built. So just looking at some of the considerations here, look at architectural design. The city does has adopted some design standards for commercial and institutional uses, and in general, looking through there on the architectural, that the brick veneer facade meets the standards for materials, textures, and colors. There's one standard here that they're not meeting, and that's 60% fenestration. So at the ground level, within those standards, it states that it requires 60% glass windows and doors. But the applicant has requested an exception to this requirement, and I'll just read it out loud. Church meeting house would have difficulty operating if classrooms, offices, or meeting rooms had a large amount of clear window area fronting a street. Religious meetings require some isolation from their surroundings for congregants to commune and worship. Classrooms require some isolation in order to provide a productive learning environment. Private offices require some isolation in order to provide a place where people can share their deepest feelings with leaders. So those design standards, it's not quite as hard and fast as for example, our city code. There is an opportunity for exceptions if there's a justification for it. Planning Commission has recommended to allow, the current design despite this standard, given the justification the applicant provided. I can go into more detail, like the specific verbiage that's in those design standards, but basically just gives that discretion to the approval body. As I mentioned, proposed landscaping meets those requirements for the number of trees and water-wise landscaping, including street trees, by the way, and they are proposing that, well, the parcel is about 10 acres. They're developing about 5 acres of it. but they will improve the street frontage for the entire parcel, the curb gutter and sidewalk and street trees along that southern part of the property as well. Parking and access, this was, I believe, the first project we had where we can kind of test our updated parking standards. The council recently adopted, and as far as vehicular parking, you know, for meeting houses, it's a little bit more, such as this, it's a little more complicated formula than a lot of it. It's not just a square footage, it's the number of feet of fixed seating and the number of square feet of movable seating. And anyway, the applicant provided details and staff reviewed those. And what would be required for this building is 245 vehicular parking stalls, and they provided 319 for bicycle. What is required is 6 stalls, and they provided 8. There's 2 vehicular access points from 1200 West, and then there's also, and they're showing it on their site plan, a 3rd access point if when the property is developed further. That was something that we reviewed, and you know, with Tom's help, recommended, just so that we wouldn't have, you know, 4 access points if something's similar developed to the south. They would just get 1 additional access, and then they could potentially share an access for one of the other ones. For signage, the proposed identification sign doesn't exceed the maximum dimension requirements, which is pretty limited, but they met that. And then for utilities, again, I put it on here wrong. Construction drawings have been reviewed by City Engineer Public Works for conformance to applicable standards, but there are some minor comments. They didn't approve it. I didn't correct that typo from Planning Commission. My mistake, but one of the conditions of the recommended conditions of approval, I'll go through at the end, is that those some of those minor comments be resolved before as a condition of approval. I'd already mentioned the streetscape. I guess I won't go over that again. And then canals, they are proposing some modifications to the irrigation canal that need to be approved by Nibley Blacksmith Fork Irrigation. So the Planning Commission and staff's recommendation is approval of this site plan for this meeting house. And by the way, I didn't mention at the beginning, you might be wondering why this is in front of City Council in the first place. So within our commercial zoning standards, and really they apply not just in commercial zones, but the use, if it's a commercial or an institutional or an industrial building, the site plan, if it's over 10,000 square feet, the City Council is the approval authority. That was so that's why this is in front of you. We've had another one, like for example, the one next or almost next door to us, that was less than 10,000 square feet. So Planning Commission approved that one. So it's because of the scale of the building that this is in front of you. So findings, application is sufficiently compliant with Nibley City design standards for commercial and institutional uses with an appropriate justification of modifier requirements for minimum fenestration on the primary building facade. The applicant is compliant with minimum parking standards. Proposed signage is in compliance with our code. The proposed utility plan complies with Nibley City engineering design standard specification with the exception of minor comments may be verified by the city engineer prior to construction. And then proposed use is a conditional use in the residential R2 zone, and the conditional use permit has been approved. Recommended conditions: the top 7 were recommended by Planning Commission. Staff is adding 1 more, just with some recent communication that I'll go over. So any future additions or development of the site beyond the proposed meeting house, portable parking, and landscaping subject to further site plan review. The applicant must obtain approval from Nibley Blacksmith Fork Irrigation Company for modification to canals on the property prior to construction. Water shares or rights must be provided to the city in accordance with Nibley City Code prior to construction. Public utility easement must be recorded along the frontage of 1200 West in accordance with Nibley City standards provide for utilities. Conditional use permit, actually, you could probably cross this one out because that has been approved. The number 6, the applicant must receive final approval from the city engineer for construction drawings. The applicant must obtain a fence permit prior to constructing any fences on the property to ensure compliance with Nibley City Code. The applicant for this one, I'm going to mention the applicant has told us what their intentions were for a fence. They did say on the north side of the property, they intend to put up a vinyl fence. And that's the part of the property that abuts some single family home lots in Nibley Meadows. On the east side of the property, they intend to put a chain and transparent chain link fence, but don't open up the area where the path would go in, so without a gate or anything. So that's what they've intended to do, and to be compliant with Nibley City Code, they would need to keep that open. So we're just recommending that they get a fence permit prior to any construction of any fence. And then this last one is applicant to install a transfer switch at the meeting house to allow connection of a power generator. So our emergency manager, Chris Searle, he has worked with some of the churches here in town to install a transfer switch at their cost, but the city has a generator that it's set up where we can connect it in case of an emergency. Let's say we have a major earthquake and we need to use it as an emergency shelter. That's the reason for that. The applicant has, it's not currently shown on the plans, but the applicant has agreed to this over email, and so, but we're just to memorialize it, we're just recommending that as a condition of approval. It's not necessarily a standard that they have to do it as far as city code, but they have agreed to do it, and we appreciate that, partnership that we can have. So in case of an emergency, these buildings we could use for that purpose, we could power them. So that's it.
Terrific. Thank you, Levi. Questions from the council before you begin debate? Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, and the applicant is online, just to remind you. Yeah, Leif Harris, he's from BHB Architects, who's representing the church.
Okay, thank you for your remote attendance. What name, first name?
Leif Harris.
Leif, if you have anything to add at this point, please go ahead, and if you'll stick around for questions, if they come up with the council, we'd appreciate that too. But here's a chance to add to anything Levi spoke to.
Well, Levi did a great job. I don't have anything really to add, so I think we're okay.
Okay, thanks, Leif. Thanks for attending our meeting.
Glad to. Thank you.
Garrett?
We'll give you a motion to approve site plan for the religious meeting house at 3420 South, 100 West, with conditions 1 through 4 and 6 through 8 from staff.
Okay, I have a motion from Garrett and a second from Kay to approve resolution 25-29 with the conditions listed minus the
Not a resolution,
Not 25-29, that's the next one.
just site plan.
I'll get that. So, yeah, there is no resolution.
Oh, that's fine.
I have my pointers on. Thank you. So this is an approval of the site plan. Thank you, Garrett, for helping me understand that. And that's a motion from Garrett and a second from Kay.
In your motion, you left out. Is that how it took
Is because it's already been completed.
Soon.
We can maybe do it, yeah.
Okay. Sounds great.
Discussion? Not hearing any, is there opposition to voting? I see no opposition, so guess what? Let's do this with voice vote. Are we okay with that? It's not a resolution. Okay, council, I'll ask you to say aye if you're in favor of this site plan approval. And if you're opposed, say nay. The site plan approval is achieved 4-0. Thanks. I hope you didn't stay up just for that, wife.
We did.
We're good. Thank you.
Look forward, welcome to Nibley. Appreciate you. Well, you're we welcome this project to Nibley.
We're excited. Thank you very much.
Okay. You want to be the mayor pro? Go sit down. You okay with that?
It's.
Just don't know.
You don't want to participate in the last time?
All right. I'll pay attention to you guys. Okay, next is resolution 2529. This would cancel the mayor election in Nibley City.
See what you're doing. That's what you're saying. We can do it.
You want to be that?
No, but we can do it. I motion Kay Sweet to be mayor. There's a second.
See?
All right.
I'm gonna watch this one.
You got one.
And you have things to be something.
So. This one is a resolution to cancel the November election for the mayoral race. Because the unopposed. All of you have.
Carol's got some stuff.
So it's been expressed to me because of the great benefit to help with elections from candidates that they enjoy seeing their name on the ballot, that it's a sign of bravery and dedication. So, it's not on the ballot, so I immediately reached out to Cache County, and I'm so glad I did because there is a state code that took effect in May of 7th of 2025 that if there is a race that there is an unopposed candidate, we have to pass a resolution. The city council needs to pass a resolution canceling that election or that electoral race. And that also declares the unopposed candidate as elected. This has to be done 15 days prior to the election. We are well ahead of that schedule, but Cache County gave me a call again today to ensure that this was happening tonight. And for that reason, I'm asking the council to waive the second reading because our meeting in October will be a couple days too late of that deadline. I reviewed the code thoroughly and I've got the notifications prepared and on my desk to be posted tomorrow, pending the council's approval of this resolution. Thank you. Any questions?
Do we save some money in the election doing this?
We do not.
A little bit of ink.
So,
Sure, just a procedural question. If somebody wanted to do a write-in campaign, do they not have that chance then, or how does that work?
the writing campaign period is,
Oh, there's
you have to, there's no writing. And there's no opposition on the ballot. So, but all of those conditions have been met. Great.
For everything unopposed.
This is our first time in Nibley City that this happened, so I just think it was a fate that I reached out to the county because I would have had known at this time, had I known. We might have had some trouble with the scrutiny that elections are under. I really don't want to do anything wrong there.
Tim will give you a motion to approve resolution 29 and waive second reading.
Nor make the revision. Aaron seconded. In that case, call for vote.
Sure.
So this, yeah, Councilmember Larson, what is your vote?
In favor?
Councilmember Sweeten,
In favor.
or I should say Mayor Pro Tem Sweeten.
In favor.
Councilmember Mann,
In favor.
Councilmember Moonville.
In favor.
Thank you.
Would you like me to come back?
Thanks, Kate.
Come back here, one night. It should sit in one your mouth. Enjoy that. Okay, thank you, Kay. Thank you, council. We're to the last item, that's council and staff reports. Derek, you want to kick us off?
Sure, I just have a couple of relevant questions. And tomorrow? Who's all driving, what are we meeting? That's at 8 AM, right?
8:30 is when we plan to leave. And so we, not knowing for certain who was coming, and we did post this as a public meeting. Both the planning commission and the city council were invited. And we're gonna go down to a development that was done by Nielsen Homes, is a large developer here in the state of Utah that's really focused on different housing types and some unique solutions to affordable homeownership. They do a lot of things, deed restrictions as far as they, yeah, first of all, owner occupied is a big one, but also they allow for grants to purchase from police, fire, civil service and things like that. So they just kind of do some unique things as well as just size. They really have small lots mixed in with large lots and do a good job of trying to blend those and make sure that there's good quality in both cases. And so anyway, it was a weird random set of coincidences really that kind of led up to meeting the gentleman that could really kind of get this going and get this set up. And so I asked him if we could come take a look. They're more than happy to give us a tour of the thing. So yeah, we're planning to leave at 8:30. Everybody's welcome. We'll figure out drivers. We'll have enough drivers to figure out what we need. So we'll just meet here and try to leave at 8:30 if you'd like to be there. We'd love to have you.
And it's a noticed city council meeting,
Correct.
so there's no limit on who can attend.
And then the only other question I have is, what is the procedure if we wanted to, would that require a closed meeting? I had some ideas for a land swap with the city, with a private individual, and I don't know if I'm allowed to discuss that, or if you're gonna initiate that, or see if they're even interested. It's just an idea I've had and maybe trying to help with the city center and indoor rec. But I don't know what the process.
So I think you're welcome to discuss that possibility with someone else, but of course, speaking for yourself and not right now, so. The motive, again, the intent of the law, the spirit of the law, that's the word I was looking for earlier, the letter of the law, the spirit of the law. The spirit of the allowing closed sessions is to discuss purchase or sale of city property, is to not drive the price up because the current owner finds out that we're interested in buying their property and all at once. So that's to keep from bidding up the price of property that we might be interested in buying. So if you think that that's not a possibility, then I'd prefer to not go to closed session unless there's a really good reason. So that's just my opinion.
I just didn't know if there was a procedure or how you even go about entertaining that or discussing that or moving forward on that.
I may,
Go ahead,
just come talk to Mayor and I, and we'll start it off and go from there, see what's available and what's possible.
Okay.
I'm on the edge of my seat now.
Me too.
I'm the solution here.
Maybe if you can get away from your real job, we can chat on the way to Weaver County.
I took tomorrow off because this. I've been thinking about this since they did a presentation. Home Builders Association is intrigued,
Nice.
so. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Garrett. Aaron?
Probably will be there tomorrow. Got it. Long duty. Excellent. Tom, I'm really excited about the crosswalk. Seems like we're making progress, so you can just update us once your turn and let us know what the timeline is. And Levi, you alluded to putting out some announcements and parking for winter parking. So just wanted to double check that that's happening sometime next week.
Yep.
And then Ron had mentioned, parking strip conversion. And he had maybe mentioned that during this day of service, we would be doing some of that, but it didn't happen, so I'm assuming maybe the timeline wasn't right. I just wondered if anybody knows, is that still something we're working on to do that parking strip conversion, or you're just gonna wait till the spring for the time there?
I'll find out.
I don't know what it is. Was that
Well,
sleep?
it's like, remember we passed
Yeah.
the ordinance, so we could do that, the flip the strip.
Oh, this is landscaping.
Yes, landscaping, sorry, it was clear.
Right.
And so Rod had been looking into it for the parking strip here at City Hall. Right, and he said he was working on it, he needed to get pictures of it ripping out the grass. But I just wondered if
Right.
just build the plan this fall or pushing it off.
This is compensation for taking out turf grass.
Right, and putting in low drip systems, native plants, that kind of thing.
Right. I know of someone who would love to advise us on stuff to go in.
I think this is
Not the,
our year now, so.
you would know too, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, I'm just excited about it, so that's why I was the time when.
I'll get back to you.
That's all.
Okay,
I had an individual approach me about, would the city be interested in their services creating a flow chart that allows citizens to better understand how to obtain information from the city. So that they know where to go, who to talk to, better understanding how to navigate our ordinances. It's the type of thing that they do for other cities. They generally attach something to the city website and they check in with the city every 6 months or something like that to see if there's a change. The purpose being more and more people are utilizing online opportunities, but often find city sites very difficult to navigate. And anyway, if this is something that the city is interested in, I can say, yes, the city would like to know more, or no, just flat out interested.
I would talk to them.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they got.
And then I had another resident, Nathan, and I know received this letter, I don't know if others did. But it's from Nathan and Kim Curitan, I think maybe you are somewhat familiar with this. They live approximately 1600 west and 3200 south. There's a pathway that is a gravel pathway. And they're hauling back onto the gravel pathway as part of the city plans, right? There are trails. Apparently it's supposed to be a paved pathway. At least that's their understanding, that it's supposed to be paved. It is not, and they're curious to know if that is on the city agenda at some point in time and what they can do to assist and bring that forward a little more often. They have problems with people walking in their backyard, or riding bikes in the rocks, getting kicked into their yard. They've had broken water heads from just the interaction there, and wondering if there's something that can be done to minimize some of the problems.
Yeah, we can look into the problems and maybe some solutions, but to my knowledge, we've never ever discussed paving that trail. It was always, from the beginning, intended to be a kind of gravel pathway.
I don't know, it sounds like that was the intention from the beginning, but it is in our active transportation plan as a paved trail. It was in the trail master plan paved as well. So I mean, maybe that's the intention was, that was what it was intended originally, but that's what it's showing now, and I think part of the reason is because it's not, I mean, this trail is just a short section, but as we grow to the south, we do have a plan to have a trail along the Hiram Slough, so, you know, for that section. And one thing that I communicated with them is that there may be more of an impetus to pave it if and when it continues south. I'm not sure about right now. I mean, that's kind of a, you know, that's a council decision, but that's what I communicated with them. But, yeah.
Well, then maybe the capital, we could get nations to one project like that would cause, would be a better idea of how to prioritize.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Thank you, Kate. No?
Thanks.
Okay, let me not take all night, but I would like to give council an update on indoor rec feasibility studies. And Chad, I'm glad you're here. Justin, you can help to run QA on me, because I'd like to talk about the county feasibility study, what we learned. It was a week ago. Does that sound right? It was 2 weeks ago. It was a Friday. And then Aaron, thank you, and Nathan as well, even though I'm not here to hear it, for coming to talk about indoor rec with Parks and Advisory Committee. So let me talk about the county study just briefly. VCBO is contracted by Cache County. They're the same company that Nibley City has hired to do a feasibility study. Their contract with the county is to look at feasibility for indoor rec countywide. And they presented 3 options to the county feasibility steering committee recently. And they break down into this, and that is that the county would provide indoor rec for the entire county. And they even talked about geographically where new facilities might be based on how far they are from people and national standards about what sorts of things a county our size ought to be providing compared to other counties. The first option, like I say, is the county takes on responsibility for indoor recreation. And it's not at least in the draft proposal for that scenario, it's not a good outcome for Nibley, because it means put things in Logan and in North Logan. And not a bunch in Nibley. I could have brought the traffics, but I don't have it. So the next option is possibility is to take Cache County and divide it into 2 separate special service in recreation districts. The dividing line that BCDO proposed would be Highway 30 west of Logan and 8991 east of Logan. So you kind of see how the county would be divided between 2 indoor rec special service districts. Each service district would be formed and act independently of one another. And you all know, you know, the process that it takes to create a recreation special service district, right? Because you all have started that process. You haven't created it, but you started the process to create it.
Or you said east and west of Logan.
Yeah, so divide the county into a north section and a south section. Yeah, the dividing line between north and south is Highway 89 that goes up Logan Canyon, and Highway 30 that is the Valley View Highway. You have to picture that. That would split Logan in 2. And Logan would have the option, depending on where they are in that dividing line, and if they're so inclined, all of these communities in the north and south would have the option to join in the creation of that special service district, one or the other. Okay, the third option is to not split Logan but instead create 3 special service districts. So one for Logan, one in the north, along the same lines, except Logan is Logan, and one in the south. Along the same lines, except Logan is Logan. So, during the steering committee meeting, Logan wasn't there. But we the steering committee said, we don't like option 1 very well. And I believe the county representative indicated that it's not likely the county's gonna take this off. As county. Things we have speculated in the past. And so we were sort of in the steering committee saying, well, no to option 1, but leave option 2 and 3. Now, Whitney with VCBO has had other conversations with Logan, especially since that steering committee meeting, and none of those 3 options are off the table at this point. So I think option 1 was fading, but it's still an option that county council would have to decide on, right? But I think that's what I have to say about the county feasibility study. I'm a little bit envious of the county feasibility study because at least we know where the county is. Right? County is the county. If the county wants to take on recreation, the county can take on recreation. Now, if we form special service districts, the question of who's in a special service district and who's out, now becomes a political decision. And that's where we are in our beginning steps to create a South Cache Recreation Special Service District initiated by Nibley. And if I have it right, then our next step on the Nibley City feasibility study is to find out who's on the boat, who might be interested, what communities might be interested in joining us in the creation of that district. So we focus specifically on Wellsville and on Hiram. And I reached out. I could tell that sometimes when people don't return my calls for a bit, they probably don't have good news for me. The news from Hiram and my specific request is, after talking about these, would you put this on a Hiram City Council meeting? Like the same sort of process to begin the creation of a special service district and join Nibley in the creation of that special service district, but include Hiram in that. The answer at this point is no, we're gonna wait and see what the county does. So that's the answer from Hiram. Now, we don't need to talk about strategy and tactics and, ways to respond to that, but that's the answer from the mayor and Hiram. Wellsville, I had trouble getting hold of Tom Bailey, but Chad told me, hey, you should try to get a hold of the city manager, which I did, and the city manager asked the city council in a session just like this, do you want this on your agenda? And I think they showed, Chad, you actually talked to Scott Wells the latest, so why don't you update us on, maybe faster than I can, because I'm getting long-winded here. But what,
Thank you, Mayor.
the response from Wellsville?
Yeah, I was visiting with Scott about flag football and he said, hey, I had a great conversation with the council about indoor recreation, and they're very favorable. They'd like to consider moving forward with recreation districts. They had a few questions, and the questions were how much is it gonna cost and location, and kind of related to that, the timing, the timeframe. All of those questions are a chicken and egg. And part of that is, okay, well, if you're in or others in, if we know it's just Nibley Wellsville, it's an easier question to answer. I mean, long story short, they would love to address those questions. And I shared this with Mayor Jacobson, and he said, well, what did they say about a resolution? I didn't think to ask that. I imagine they would entertain a resolution, but we don't know if it would be in a single step or 2 steps, where they get the answers to their questions, and then next meeting they do
But regardless, Scott said they met it with, they're very positive, very favorable, they'd like to explore it. And they'd like to move forward quickly with this step, prior to a new council coming in. Was the communication there.
Yeah, thank you, Chad. Aaron, anything to add? Did I?
That's what I heard from Whitney last night.
Okay, thanks for your help there. I commend this council actually in being in front of this whole process. Because there is a tendency, I think, on any legislative body to say, well, let's just wait and see what somebody else does. Right? Let's wait and see what the county does. They're running the feasibility study, for example. But I think 2 of the 3 options that the consultants will probably show to the county council, we're already started on the 2 that I think have the most promise of actually achieving something. So good for you all to get in front of this process. And we just got to figure out who wants to go down the path with us. And that's our focus on the Nibley feasibility study in the near term. Anything else on that? Okay, I'll be very brief. Community development block grant projects, I've talked about those before. There's a formula based on population and low to medium income in the different AOGs, associations of government. Bragg gets a certain about $800,000 in federal HUD money, housing and urban development money for community development block grant projects. Applying for these at the federal level has been incredibly problematic. And so through the Human Services Committee of Bragg, we've brought forward to the governing board of Bragg, somehow I ended up on both these, that instead of making individual like neighborhoods or projects move forward with all of the very difficult steps of public hearings and so on and so forth, even though there are workshops on how to apply for CDBG grants, that the Bragg governing board could just say, look, we can make this decision without all of that sort of rigmarole, and then relieve the burden of all of these public disclosures and public meetings and public hearings. So my ask is there something in Nibley that we could use federal grant money on to improve infrastructure, improve people's lives that live in Nibley? I'll just give it to you to think about. But there are income limitations on any of this. So if we applied it to all of Nibley to upgrade some infrastructure, we would not qualify. But there may be a neighborhood where just the incomes for a certain neighborhood could benefit from some money that would build infrastructure or make something safer for that neighborhood. And they wouldn't have to go through all the rigmarole because the Bragg governing board would just approve them without all of the federal government interference.
Like, can you give an example of what types of infrastructure?
Sure. This one came and went, but we talked about a water system improvements for the trailer court. So my guess is that they could probably meet the income requirements, the people in that neighborhood. So there could be federal money to say, look, we're gonna upgrade the water system. And you'll get money from the community development block grant program to pay for that.
So even though that's a private,
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have to be public infrastructure.
What about like storm drain, like from the one project running into the slough, on the north side of Nathan's subdivision?
Yeah, that's a possibility too. Yeah,
But that's not gonna be low moderate income
yeah, we have.
community. Unless there's I mean, even, yeah, I don't, just based on my exposure to it, I think that's a pretty long shot.
And you don't have to think necessarily of projects in Nibley. So think of the three counties in the Bear River Association of Governments, and maybe you see something there that you could recommend to the governing board of Bragg if they take this on.
Something to know if this would count or not. On 2600 south between 165 and say Nibley Elementary, around that. We have a sidewalk, which is frequently used as a bike path because of the condition of just the way the road blends into the grass there, making it really difficult for both pedestrians and cyclists. And I see that happening frequently during school hours, and a lot of the, the trailer court area is close to that, going back and forth. But I see it with high school age kids as well, and I don't know if that would entirely fit the moderate income, but I know it's a lower price point than most of them.
Yeah, so I could to Bragg staff. If they don't think of other stuff, happy to take that to the Bragg staff and consider it. Okay, sorry, I'm taking one with Ben, I had planned.
Good.
I talked to the council last time about sidewalk safety for pedestrians. You made a great suggestion, thank you. I forgot your first name. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm talking about. Right. I would be insulted. Especially if I was getting blamed for making a suggestion that he didn't make. Sorry, my apologies. Yeah, he's kind of quiet. But here's my first step. And I encourage us to all keep thinking about it. I kind of went to big solutions all at once, and I decided the place to start is to simply put a letter, like from me in the newsletter, that said we have a problem to solve. And the first thing we have to do is bicycles, scooters, especially the electric variety, need to yield to pedestrians. And please help your kids understand that. So that's where we're gonna start and see how far it gets. Now, Parks and Rec Committee actually suggested that we go to the schools and maybe have the sheriff stand up and say, listen, you little, have the sheriff in uniform say, listen, here's the rules and you need to obey them. But we need to continue working on that. You'll see, Cheryl helped me, thank you, with the graphic, so you'll see something in the next newsletter. Okay, I'm done. Anyway.
Maybe just to address Aaron's question on the winter parking. Yeah, we do have some reminders that are going out to people that are currently parking on the street, which is perfect, legal, but just to be more pointed that, hey, November 1st, just as a reminder, winter parking restrictions start, and we also talked about putting some signs out. So those, I think Evan's already going to start putting those reminders out. I think we've got them printed and everything, and then I need to work on getting a few signs out just on prominent corners, just to remind people. And then also just want to mention on top of one USU landscape architect environmental planning project, we have another one for a different course that's going to focus on the design of the park at Nibley Meadows and the surrounding area across the street and all of that. And we have in the budget, and Tom's going to lead the design process, but before that kicks off, we just hope to get some ideas from students on that. We have a concept plan in our Parks and Rec master plan, but we've added some space with Nibley Meadows that wasn't included, and just feel like we can get consider some more things. There's, I know there's been different opinions on different elements, splash pads. We won't go into that of whether it should have a splash pad right now, but just what elements should go into the park and how should those things be configured. And the students will kind of go through a process. That's gonna be this semester, and the professor said that they'll kind of kick that off. He said around October 27th, and then they would have a final presentation up at the university where they'll present their ideas around the mid or beginning to mid December there. So if anyone wants to be involved on that project, let me know, or on the other project that I already mentioned. There'll be some opportunities to interact with students and see what their ideas are in the shop, and so just let me know.
Thank you, Leroy.
Yep.
Save the best for last.
Is that what we're doing, Justin?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just update on engineering stuff. We're busy with development. They're all in a rush to try to get weather. They're getting water lines, sewer lines, trying to get their roads in. So we have Big Line Park, several phases going on, Hawk Hollow, 2 phases there. We have Heritage Parkway, this one's the one out on 2600 South. West of 1200 West on the south side there. And yeah. Nibley Meadows.
Nibley Coach.
Nibley Coach is just wrapping up, so we've just been scrambling, trying to keep up
Nibley
with that.
Coach too.
With regard to that also, we're working on capital projects. So you mentioned the 3200 South Rabbit Flashing Beacon. So Cache Valley Electric's been great partners with us. We use the state contractors pricing to just do a direct award, as you know. There's a long lead on the poles though, that hold the beacons and the signs and stuff, but they were able to do some shifting on some other projects, stole 3 of them. And they should be installed on Monday. They said they're gonna try to get it over the weekend. But on Monday, we should have those up there, and I program them to give sufficient time to cross the road. So Monday night should be on operation. It's gonna be, I'm gonna add a little bit of extra time there because I'm thinking for the school, or excuse me, the park, that there's gonna be some kids, and typically program that at 4 seconds or 4 feet per second. Anyway, I'm gonna get a little extra length of time so smaller children get across their phone. So on Monday, hopefully that's all done. Phase 5 of 1200 West. We're closing in on a pave date. They're looking to pave Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week. So that'll be the entire quarter. There's somewhere 3,000 tons of asphalt. They still want to keep the intersection at Nibley Park Avenue closed so they can work on the barriers and the bulbs. So I extended the closure till the 13th. You probably received an email this morning. So we're winding on that. The deadline for their contract was October 15th. There's been 3 rain days, and with regard to those rain days, there's 2 extra days that they couldn't work because of soft soils and things. So there's about a week, so we're extended into about October 20th, but they're supposed to be done with the entire project then. And we're pretty close to that. We're also working on the well. We dug, or they drilled a test well, which was an 8-inch casing, went down 600 feet. They found bunches of water all throughout the water column. There's some weak spots in there. There's some weird colored water that was coming out due to some iron suspended in the water. But we took a look at all the soil profiles, what water we had available, and staff and the consulting engineer, Sunrise Engineering, developed a plan to drill the permanent well with the 24-inch casing, and then we decided locations that would be more ideal for screening. So that's where the water would come into the well, and then that's where the bump. So you put these screens in these strategic locations that are high in water and low in contaminants. We did run some tests on the water. It was pretty good. There were suspended iron, which is great. That's what we were seeing, that orange, the orange water. But it wasn't dissolved. So we feel that we could flush all that out and get that once we develop that primary production well. Currently on the production well, they're about 170 feet. They still have to go down to 600 feet. So that they're advancing at about 40 feet per day. So there's still another quite a bit of time. They don't think they're going to be able to get all 600 feet with the 24-inch casing. So what that means is once they reach a certain point, as they're drilling and they can't drill anymore without breaking equipment, they'll shift gears and start with the next size down on the casing. So we'll go from 24 to 22 or 21 and then advance from where they left off on that 24. And then once all that 24 is done, they'll put our casing in, which is the permanent casing. It's a 16-inch casing. That's where the screens will be. We'll pack around with gravel and then they'll pull that bigger casing out. And that's our well. Yeah, we'll be done with that in about 2-3 months with everything all done. Then we're into design of the well house. Hopefully we'll have that bid and start construction early next year. Any questions? Thanks, concerns, complaints, great. It's like that.
Meet the candidates night is scheduled for October 20th. Let the public know about that, please. They can submit questions to me at any time. Got information about that in the newsletter and online, and there'll be signs going out. The newsletter has the winter parking notice on the very front page, as it has every October for the past 5 years, but it is there again. And then it's time for OPMA training, Open and Public Meetings Act. We can do that all together at our next city council meeting, or if you prefer, I can send that out as a training that you can complete through the auditor's office that has a small test or quiz at the end. If you'll just give me a, excuse me, when I talk, I cough. If you'll just send me email, if you have a preference. If I don't receive an email, we'll probably just put it, that'll just have me or put on the next agenda.
I think you should train us all at the same time, but how about if you train us all at the same time, but we have to take a test by ourselves and then hold up our scores to the public.
Can you do the meeting training? I'm gonna bring popcorn again.
And an exam. Thank you.
We'll wait for you.
Chad, do you have anything?
First of all, I'm very excited about the crosswalk at 3200 South. We've noticed with Ridgeline Development, a lot of that community is crossing the street to go to Amber Park, especially for our events. We get a lot of bikes and strollers crossing, so making that safe space or that space safer is ideal. I'm very excited about that. Also, I was not at the Parks and Rec Committee meeting. It was also a joint meeting with the steering committee for indoor rec last night. Thank you to Levi and Curtis and Mayor Jacobs and Aaron Nathan for participating in that. I have had a chance to listen to most of that meeting. I've missed a few bits and pieces, but it was a very well run meeting. I don't know why I need to be there. If you guys want to take that over. And just a couple of quick comments about indoor rec. Mayor Jacobson mentioned conversation that he had with the current mayor Miller. And I would submit this, that she unfortunately was not present when BCBO presented the results of the survey regarding her community. And I don't know if that information would help her better understand the landscape and interests of our community. I will say this, I've had conversations with other Hiram council members, one of them an incumbent that's running, another that will stay on council, that are very interested and excited about entertaining a resolution for indoor rec. So an interesting situation and scenario in Hiram there. And some council members that have expressed that they can get behind it. The other thing I would say is I'm excited for the opportunity that you have to go to the League of Towns and Cities. I'd encourage you to have discussions with our colleagues, especially those in the Valley. I know that Aaron and Nathan took an opportunity to do that with some of our friends from Providence. Bring up, please, any collaborative efforts, whether it's fire district or water, indoor rec, whatever the case may be. One of my previous managers taught me that it's important to think to give. So if there's a way that we can give to them in exchange and help each other out, that always opens doors. And then Also wanted to report to you a little bit of work that we completed. Today we had a meeting. It's a NERPA meeting, Northern Utah Recreation and Parks Association here this afternoon, kind of a lunch and learn. About 25 of my colleagues were here, but we hosted it. We came up with some of the topics and presentation material. I invited a couple of professors, one from Weber State, one from USU, to present what their programs are about and how we can connect with universities for the benefit of our community. They certainly talked about recreation management students and shared that Nibley is kind of a champion of tutoring and mentoring interns and suggested we might be a good pattern, and I shared some things. But the USU professor also suggested we look at other ways to leverage students and professors and programs to the benefit of our community. I'll highlight one that we may do. Morgan Farms benefited from the landscape design group, but another part of the discussion, about half of those attending were very interested in solving motorized vehicles in parks and dogs in parks. And that's something our Parks and Rec Committee has been discussing. The mayor mentioned some things today in his report. A couple of things that I learned is some of the communities have standardized some things. However, their challenge, similar to ours, is enforcement, getting law enforcement on board to do something about it. We talked about educating the public. One of my colleagues suggested after we had, heard this presentation from the university that perhaps we could leverage marketing students to help us craft an educational piece that would help parents especially understand where it's appropriate to have, certain motorized battery powered wheeled vehicles. I also educated them on update of state law. It was also suggested that we take this same question and effort to our state organization and see if collectively we can come up with some solutions that we could share with everyone. And so we'll be working on that. I'll definitely report to you how that goes. I'm excited that this council wants to stay ahead of that. And on that comment, I really appreciate kind of leading out on indoor rec and applaud that bravery that Cheryl mentioned. And last but not least, to Kay's point, I love the flow charts. I'm the mobile flow charts for Nibley City. Everywhere I go, they say, Chad, I have a question. What about a shed? What about this street? What about this cul-de-sac? I would love to point them to that. Often I'll point them to our website or point them to one of my colleagues here in the office. But if there was something that would direct people, I've even asked them, hey, let's pull up the website, and I watch them navigate. And it's interesting to see, even when we have redundant navigation, sometimes they struggle to find things. And pictures help tremendously for people. Anyway, that's everything I'd like to thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Justin, what do you have?
Really quick, it's audit season and we've implemented an internal audit. I believe Aaron's helped us in the past and Case helped us in the past. And sorry if I forget who else, but would like to know if anybody would like to help us with that this year. Really, we give a list of items to check on and just have the opportunity to kind of do a little bit of an audit, make sure that we're following all the financial procedures and things that we're supposed to be doing. So we're looking for a volunteer if anybody would like to do that. And it's really kind of up to you how involved that is. We give you a list and it's you can do it in a couple hours and be done, or you can spend a week if you want. It's really kind of whatever you want to do. All right, thank you very much.
Can you say that into the mic, please?
I will do it.
Okay.
Happy birthday. Just also really quick, there's a bunch in the work with our representative Casey Snyder right now. He just got his name on a lot of really big moving parts and pieces. I reached out to him and he made it clear that he would appreciate the opportunity if anybody had questions to reach out to him, and he asked if he could come to council meeting next to address you all. So in the meantime, if anybody has any questions or issues, he's still more than happy to talk to you or take your phone call. So I had a good discussion with him today for quite a while.
We should sign him up for a workshop.
Okay.
The next council. I'll talk to you about it if you want.
Yeah, he asked to come, so put it to work.
Good for him.
The only other thing I had is to say thank you. The staff, we really appreciate the relationship that we have with the council, the level of support and cooperation, and even when people don't agree on things, we really appreciate how this council operates and how we're able to get things done. And just really want to express our appreciation and thank you for all that you do for us as staff. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Does any member of council object to adjourning? Seeing no objection, we're adjourned. Thanks for your work.